Hi guys, hello and welcome to another Java programming tutorial. In this tutorial, we will be learning about Java server pages and Java database connectivity as I connect Java to IBM DB2. So I will be sharing with you an example that I share with my students as a project example on which they draft their project. So to get started, what I am showing you right now is the IBM Rational Developer for I tool, which is a very cool tool if you are familiar with IBM mid-range operating system, IBM iOS. It's a great tool to interact with that, even though you can also use 5250 emulator. But as you can see over here, I will be using a table called Course Project 20B, which has the following 4 fields, and you can see their description. I could right-click and click Data to return all rows. In that case, I can see all the current records located in the bottom right corner. I have shared with you another tutorial on this page, how to work with the Data Source Explorer, which is a database development environment within the Rational Developer. So you can watch that tutorial for more details. And then under Edit, I can actually add more data right here. It's very easy. I just need to enter a value. For each of my fields, I need to enter a value. And then all I need to do is press Enter and hit Control S. Or hit the save button. It runs my statement and it tells me that the record is inserted. If I would like to insert multiple records, I can also do that. In that case, I have to constantly hit tab. So what it does, it highlights that row in yellow colors, showing me that that row is not yet saved. And when I'm done, I can press Enter and hit Control S or hit the Save button, and it will process both records and will tell me that both records were inserted successfully. Anyway, so once I have created enough records, which will help me view my data in the Java Server Pages application. Now let me show you my setup in Eclipse. The example is already completed. I will just walk you through that example. So I installed Java Enterprise Edition Eclipse for this example. So let me open the project. It is a dynamic project which could be very easily created by clicking File, New, Dynamic Web Project. And you give your project a name. You make sure that your web server is selected, and then you walk your way through. I've shown you this process in the past, but just for the sake of showing it again, in order for you to set up the web server in Eclipse, set up a web server in Eclipse, all you need to do is click the Window menu and then click on Preferences. And then down below, you will find Server, which you can expand and click Runtime Environment. I have a separate video to show you this whole process. Some of you might have watched it before. And then you click on Add. You browse that jar file after you choose what kind of server you have. You browse the jar file in the local computer and you hit Finish, and then you get this entry here. Now that the database, the web server is selected, is installed in Eclipse, and I have my database set up, I've shown you my table and the records and the whole 9 yards. Let me walk you through the process of setting up this environment. So now what you do, I am using 2 jar files, which I downloaded to the local computer. One is the JT400 jar file, which I will be using to talk to the DB2 from Java, which will help me build the JDBC bridge with DB2. And the other one is DB2. So you need to put it in 2 places. First of all, for the sake of development, so that you can import those packages, you need to go under the properties, and then you need to go under the Java build path. Then under libraries, you need to click add external jars. And then this is where I added these two external jars, JT400 and DB2 Java. So as soon as I open, it's added to the project. The other place where I need to add is under the web content. Notice I am under Project Explorer, because sometimes what happens, people are not in the correct view and they're like, we can't find what you're looking at. So if you do not see Project Explorer, then you go to Window, Show View, and if you do not see Project Explorer over here, click Other. You should be able to find it under General, Project Explorer, and click Open, and that will show you the Project Explorer view. Okay, so in the Project Explorer view, under Web Content, under Web INF, you have this lib folder. So this is where you also need to add, because when you are running it on the web server will be grabbing them during runtime from here. How do you do that? For example, if you do not have these two jar files, you can simply open your downloads and you can select the two jar files by pressing and holding the control key on the keyboard, and then you can drag it and drop it on the lib folder, and that's how it can be done. So for example, let me remove one, so just to show you what it does when you do that. So let me grab the DB2 and drop it on the lib. Okay, it is asking you, would you like to copy the files? Click OK, and then if you open, it has the db2 java.jar file. Okay, so that's how it's available. So just to show you that it's in two places, one it's under the Java build path for the properties, and the other one is under the lib folder of the web INF. Okay. Once you are done with these steps, now it's time to look at the project. So what I did, I created a login.html page. This is a simple HTML page with some CSS, and all I'm doing over here is I have a simple login where I will be accepting from user the same username and password that I have for my IBM machine, and this is a session-oriented website. So as soon as the person enters the IBM username and password, I will add it to the session, and I will maintain that username and password in the session, and I will only refer to that username and password when I need to talk to the database. I'll show you the whole session management process as well, even though there are separate videos I have shared with you on my channel which talk about session management. I'm just summing it all up in this one example. So after somebody enters the username and password, I go to sessionpage.jsp. So what I'm doing in sessionpage.jsp is I am pulling, by using the request.get parameter. Request is a JSP built-in object. I'm pulling the values from username and password parameters, which were my form elements, username and password. That's how JSP can read a form element. After that, I make sure that they're not null, their length is not 0, and now I'm adding them to the session attribute. So session.set attribute. So I'm adding the uname into the username attribute and pass into the password attribute, and then I am redirecting the user to home.jsp. One thing I will do from this point onward is on each and every page of my site, I will make sure that somebody is visiting this page through a session. If somebody just know the URL and drop into a page, it will automatically redirect them to the main page. So if somebody come here without coming in through the login page, notice if uname and pass are null, they get redirected back to the login page. Now let me take you to the home page. I did not do much on the home page. However, it's a very simple page. This is the logic that is used in each and every page, that if the session attributes are not set, then redirect the user to login page. If session attributes are set, if they're not null, then say success. There is another very cool thing that I did in this example, And that is, I created an HTML page called Site Nav with all the links of my project listed there inside a nav. And in each one of my pages, I'm simply including this page so the nav automatically becomes part of each and every page, so I do not have to set up my nav on every page, and that's how I'm doing it. On line 17, I'm including the file sitenav.html. So that's how automatically each page will have a navigation bar added to it. Okay. Now let me take you one by one to each one of the other pages. Let me take you to the logout page first. So what logout page does, it simply invalidates the session and redirects the person back to the login page. Why do you need to redirect? If you do not redirect and you stay on the logout page, the session information is still in the memory. You have to go to a different page to clear the memory. That's why you will see in all emails or any other website where there's a logout process, you always get redirected to a different page. For that reason that they want to clear the cache. Anyway, so that's a very simple code. Again, the session management tutorial is available on the channel as in separate videos. Here I am simply putting it all together. Now that we are done with the login and logout and home, now these are the 4 operations: insert, update, delete, select, that I would like to visit. One more concept I want to tell you, that there are 2 ways to send information from one page to another. One you already saw, that login.html send its information over to the login page, send its information over to session.jsp. And this is how you do it. In the action property of the form, you write the name of the page to which the information will be submitted. There is another thing that you could do, that a page can submit information back to itself, which is called post-back process. And that's what I will be following in my other 4 pages: insert, update, delete, and select. Okay, now let's see the insert page. In the insert page, notice the lines 3 and 4. I'm importing java.sql package so I can use the Java SQL classes, and I'm importing com.ibm.as400.access package so that I can use the JT400 classes. Now scrolling down to the page, now as I told you that we have this if condition to make sure that somebody is visiting this page through a session. If it did not come through a session, they get redirected. If you came in through a valid session, I'm providing user with a form to enter the data that will go in the database. And notice the action property is submitting the page back to itself. What does that imply? That implies that it's a post-back form, when a form submits back to itself. So when a form submits back to itself, this bottom code is the one that will come into action. First time when the page runs, these guys will be null. But second time when you come in through a post-back process, then when I'm reading these form elements, CID, CNAME, credits, and description, now these values will not be null. So if these values are not null, only then I establish connection with the database. If these values are null, I don't really do anything. So there is no else to this if. As you can see, this if has no else. The bottom else is if somebody came in through without a session. So what I'm doing here is I'm declaring my connection object, my statement object, my AS400 JDBC driver, which comes from, as you can see, com.ibm.as400.access package. And then I instantiate my driver, I load my driver, and I build my JDBC string with AS400. So that's a JDBC AS400 bridge. And I'm setting the prompt to false. Otherwise, it will give me a separate pop-up outside of the web page, forcing user to enter a username and password in the dialog box. That could be cumbersome. So anyway, so what I'm doing here, as I told you, that on my login page, I'm asking users to put in the username and password. That's the username and password for the IBM machine. And then I'm storing that in the session, and that's where I'm grabbing that information from the session. So session.get attribute to retrieve, session.set attribute to set. So you probably saw similar syntax way up here as well. Session.get attribute username, session.get attribute password. Make sure that they're not equals to null. Now that you grab this information of username and password, you combine them with the URL for the JDBC AS400, which will help you talk to the database. This is the name of my server to which I'm talking to, deathstar.gtc.edu. So whatever is the name of your server, you put it there. Anyway, so this will help me establish the connection to my server, and this will help me create my statement object. So then I create my SQL. So in my SQL statement, as you can see, I'm following the SQL standard and simply putting in the variables where needed. So insert into the table values. My first value is a string, so I'm putting it in single quotes. And then my second value is also a string, so I put that in single quotes. My third value is a number, so I do not put it in single quotes. And my last value is a string, so I do put it in the single quotes. So this is how I write my SQL statement. And then I'm calling the statement's execute update method to run the SQL statement. And then I'm notifying user that one record is inserted successfully. And if anything goes wrong, then display the error message. So this is insert page done. I will walk you through the output as well once I explain each one of these pages. Then I will take you to update page. Update page is the most lengthiest and a little bit of a trickier page. The reason is because when the update page loads, I want all the course IDs to be automatically populated in a drop-down box. Then I'm letting user choose one of the IDs from the drop-down box and then click the button, so then the page will be submitted back to itself to create another form underneath it with the values filled up where you can update. And then the other thing I have done over here is that when the page gets submitted back to itself, the drop-down box usually refreshes and changes it back to the first value. I want the drop-down box to stay at a value that was selected by the user so that the user is entering the values and knows what values the user is changing. The other thing is that when I hit the submit on the second form, I want my drop-down box value to travel with it because I will be submitting it to another page for update and come back. So I will walk you through the process. When I'm explaining verbally, it may not make much sense. So let's go down. So we check the session. Now I grab the value of the course ID, and I'll explain to you why I'm doing it. In case if the postback occurred, then CID will hold that course ID which the user selected before the postback. If this is the first time, then CID will be null. And I will use this value to figure out when I'm repopulating the drop-down box at what value to keep the selection, because by default only the first value is automatically selected in a drop-down box. Here there is another postback operation. I'm submitting the form back to itself. It's an update.jsp. And here I'm establishing the connection, the whole 9 yards. This is my select drop-down box, which is called CID. I'm establishing the database connection, pulling the section information as I explained to you in the previous page. Now I'm running a select command. So I'm selecting all the course IDs in the course project 20B. And this time, instead of execute update, I'm using execute query because execute query returned a result set back, and I'm holding that result set in the result set object RST. This is basically a temporary memory from where I will be grabbing one record at a time in a loop, and that's what I'm doing. So this is where I am checking to see that grab the value of CID from each record and then see if CID matches val. What is val? Val is the object that holds the postback CID. So wherever it matches, I want that item to be selected and all other items will go unselected. So that's basically that logic which takes care of that. Now, once we are done with selecting an item and somebody hit the submit button, I then submit it back to update.jsp. So the bottom portion of this code will run, which will grab the value of CID, which is the postback value, and then establish the session and everything else. And now it needs to only select the course name, the credits, and description from the table where the course ID matches the course ID that the user selected. Then I will run this SQL statement, so I know for sure that only one record will be returned because there's only one course that will match that course ID. So I don't have to loop through. Loop through is usually done if you have multiple records. So I am just making sure that my result set pointer is pointing at the only record in the result set. So I do rst.next. And now notice this form where I will be submitting the data to update data.jsp. I will be giving user a choice of changing the description, the credits, and CNAME, where CID is hidden from user, and that's a course ID, because my other page will need this course ID to only update that record, otherwise all records will be updated. Now, this is how I am pre-populating the values in the text boxes. By using the HTML value attribute, I am using the expression in JSP, which is equals to, that is equivalent to out.println, as I explained to you in the previous tutorials. And I am grabbing from the results set, my field is a string, so I'm calling getString, and one means the first field, and then getString the second field, and getString the third field. So that's how I'm grabbing those values. Even the credits behind the scene is a number, but since this cannot take anything but integers, but string, so that's why I'm converting it to a string. It won't complain. And now this gets pre-populated. I make whatever changes I want to make, and then when somebody hits the submit button, the data gets submitted to update data.jsp. In the update data.jsp, again, I check the session management, I establish the connection with the database, I grab all the form elements, and once I establish the database, I will then be running my update command to update the course project, setting the course name to this, setting the credits to this. Notice I did not use single quotes around credits because it is a number, and description to this, where course ID equals to this. So if you know a little bit of SQL, you know exactly what that update command does. And then I'm running the execute update, and I'm redirecting the person back to the update page. And that's what this does, response.send redirect. Okay, now 2 more pages, and then I will demonstrate you this entire process. And while I'm demonstrating, I will go back and forth with the page. So the example is slightly longer, but again, you know, we're talking about a final project here, right? So now let me take you to delete. Delete is very, very close to the update because we still need in the delete a drop-down box which will pre-populate just like this, all the course IDs for me, except for that little logic of holding on the previously post back course ID. So that's the only difference, that I have removed that logic. It simply populates the entire drop-down box with course IDs. When somebody hits the submit button, it's a post back again to a form. So here's the submit button, delete course information. So I'll take you back to the form, which submits back to the same page, delete.jsp. In that case, the bottom code now kicks in, which grabs the course ID and then establishes the database connection and writes the SQL statement that delete from this table where course ID matches this course ID, so only that one record will be deleted. And then I'm executing the update command to run the SQL statement, and then I am redirecting it back to the same page. The reason is because in the drop-down box, the item that I am deleting is still sitting there. I just want to refresh the page so that that item is removed, and that will take care of that. So now after that, we will be looking at our select.jsp, which is much simpler than any of the others. All I'm doing over here is checking the session, establishing the database connection, and running a select star on the project, on the course project 20B table, running the SQL statement, storing the results in a result set. I know there are multiple records sitting in the result set, so I create a table, and the first row is before the loop. And as you can see over here, I close the scriptlet and open it again. So I only use scriptlets where there is JSP. Otherwise, whenever I'm just writing HTML, I don't use scriptlets. I just leave it to the regular HTML. So I'm creating the first row of the table with the column headings. Then I go inside the loop in the scriptlet, and as long as the result set is not equals to null, the next will be true, and I'm generating a row, and in each cell I'm grabbing the value from the result set. So the first two values are string, the third value is integer, which is credits, and the last value is a string. Again, you can use CSS and some of the other things to make it look very pretty. The idea of this example is just to show you the look and feel and the working. And that's about it. Okay, now let me walk you through the example and how you can test it. You will begin the process from login.html, and you will click on run as run on server. You choose the server. Remember, I showed you the server, so you hit next and finish, and the server will load as starting the server, and I will be redirected to the very first page, which is the login page. This is where I will be entering the IBM username and the password, and then I click login. So now I am inside the page, it's the site, and let me show you the logout process. As you can see, it takes me back to the login. So that was a session management piece of the information. Now, let's click on insert. So it loads this page, and it let me enter, and I cannot come here directly if I'm not in a session. So I enter a course number, a course name, and let me click insert. It tells me that one record was inserted successfully. Now let me go to update, and as I click on the drop down box, you can see this was the course that I just added, 109. I click on it, and I click on load course information, and notice 109 stays here, and this is the logic I showed you when I was explaining to you that how this stays, because of the logic that I wrote up here, that wherever it matches, only that item should stay. All other items should just go in the list but not stay. So after that, you see this. Let me update the credits to 4.0, business and IT. I'll add a little period here, and I'll say update course information. So it will go to update data.jsp, which you can see right here, which is the page I walked you through. So this will only update that record and will redirect me back to update. So let's watch update, and you are back. And notice I will choose that course in the list. This is 109, and load information, and you will see that the period is there that I added, and the credits is 4.0. Now let me go to delete, and let me delete 109. And let me delete this course. So it just comes back, and you can see that 109 is now gone. And it comes back because of response.redirect. Now let me go to select, and you can see that it lists all courses but 109. Let me go back to delete, and maybe delete one other course, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. Delete it. It's gone. Come back to select, and notice that course is also gone. And then I click log out to log out. So it's a simple application written in JSP to communicate with the database. Of course, I can add other layers to it. I can add Java beans to it to take care of some of the database parts. I could add servlets to add some other layering to it. But this is a very simple application that walks you through the multi-tier application of being able to process the insert, update, delete, and select operation from JSP with the IBM DB2 database. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please let me know in the comment section below if this was helpful to you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Take care. Bye-bye.